So, you've probably heard of Benjamin Graham. I mean, he's the father of value investing, the guy who literally taught Warren Buffett everything he knows about picking stocks. But here's the thing, and it's a huge contradiction. If he were alive today, his game plan for most of us, for you and me, would probably look, well, nothing like what you'd expect. So what would the OG of stock picking actually do in a market that's just worlds away from his time?
So let's ask that question again. How would the ultimate stock picker invest today? You'd think the answer would be, picking individual stocks. But believe it or not, that's almost certainly not what he'd recommend. His modern solution is actually incredibly simple, and it all boils down to one really profound, kind of humbling observation he made about all of us.
See, Graham got it. He understood that for almost everyone, the biggest, scariest risk you're going to face isn't a market crash. Nope, it's the person staring back at you in the mirror. He figured out that our own behavior, our own emotions, that's the number one thing that gets in the way of success. So he went looking for a real, practical solution to this very, very human problem.
And Graham was, let's be honest, brutally realistic about this. He knew that most of us, we just don't have the time to pore over financial statements like a professional analyst. We don't have that super specialized skill set. And here's the big one. Most of us just don't have the right emotional temperament to ride out the crazy ups and downs of the market without freaking out. His big takeaway? It's the bad decisions we make that kill our returns, way more than just having a slightly off analysis.
And all of this leads to his most important insight, really. A strategy, any strategy, is completely useless if you can't actually stick with it, especially when things get really scary. And that's exactly why Graham saw investment funds not as some kind of compromise or a second-best option. No, he saw them as a brilliant strategic hack to get around our own worst instincts.
Okay, but here's where it gets tricky. Not all funds are the same, not by a long shot. A lot of investors, they're looking for that special edge, right? So they fall right into what you could call the active fund trap. The idea is simple. You hire some genius manager to go out and beat the market for you. Sounds awesome, doesn't it? Well, the reality, it's a very, very different story.
So active funds, they sell you this really compelling dream, right? An expert is going to use their secret sauce to get you these amazing market-beating returns. But when you pull back the curtain, what do you really find? You find high fees just eating away at your profits. You find a ton of trading that creates a tax nightmare. And you find one simple, hard, documented fact. The vast, vast majority of these funds, they just don't beat the market over the long run.
And you can see exactly why right here. An active fund manager might do, okay, maybe they even beat the market a tiny bit before you account for their costs. But then you subtract their fees. And those fees can be huge. All of a sudden, the return you, the investor, actually get to keep in your pocket is less than what you would have made in a dead simple low-cost index fund. It's so important to get this. Costs are an absolute killer for long-term growth.
And this is where one of Graham's most powerful, most timeless ideas comes in. Think about it. Can you guarantee you'll get amazing, market-beating returns? No way. But can you guarantee you'll have to pay the fees? Absolutely 100%. So his advice was always simple. Focus on the things you can actually control.
Okay, so if picking a star active manager is basically a trap, then what's the intelligent move? What's the smart alternative? Well, this is it. This is the big aha moment of this whole thing. It turns out that the modern strategy that lines up perfectly with Graham's core philosophy is the humble, simple, low-cost index fund.
Now, to really get why this is, you've got to understand his most famous idea of all, the margin of safety. It sounds kind of technical, but it's really simple. It just means building a buffer, a cushion, for all the times you're going to be wrong, because you will be. It's your protection against bad luck, unexpected events, or just a flat-out bad calculation.
And what is an index fund, really? It's basically a margin of safety machine. I mean, think about it. You're spread out across so many companies that if one of them goes belly up, it's not going to destroy you. Your returns are automatically protected by super low costs. You completely eliminate the risk of betting on some star manager who turns out to be a dud. And because it's automated, it helps stop you from making those crazy emotional trades. It's like Graham's principles baked into a system.
This totally flips the script on how we talk about this stuff. People love to call indexing passive investing, like it's lazy or something. But for the kind of investor Graham was talking about, which is most of us, choosing an index fund isn't passive at all. It's an active, deliberate, intelligent decision to focus on the things that actually work. Keeping your discipline, keeping your costs low, and spreading your risk.
But you know what? The biggest advantage of all might just be psychological. Indexing helps you win,
by essentially taking you out of the day-to-day game. It removes the need to constantly make decisions, and that's a game that, let's face it, most of us are just wired to lose.
And we've seen this work time and time again in real life. Go back to the 2008 financial crisis. The index investors who just held on did way, way better than all the people who panicked and sold at the bottom. Fast forward to the crazy drop in 2020. That simple, boring strategy kept people from making the classic mistake of trying to time the market. And again in 22, it was the anchor of discipline when everyone was chasing wild, shifting stories. The lesson is always the same. Simplicity wins.
So here's the ultimate paradox, right? The best investment strategies often work because they remove us, the investor, from the process. They literally take our hands off the steering wheel. Why? Because they save us from ourselves. They put our worst emotional instincts on the bench where they can't do any damage.
But, and this is a really big but, Graham was no fool. He was a realist. He knew that you can have the most brilliant, simple tool in the world, and people will still find a way to break it by using it wrong. So while this strategy is incredibly robust, it is absolutely not foolproof.
So if you wanted to ruin this perfectly good strategy, how would you do it? It's easy. The mistakes are classics. First, you'd chase whatever fund was the hot performer last year. Then, you'd jump in and out of your funds every time you see a scary headline. You'd completely ignore what you're paying in costs and fees, and for the grand finale, you'd speculate like crazy with those trendy thematic funds like it's a weekend in Vegas.
It's a pretty sobering thought, but it's crucial. A bad investor can absolutely ruin a good fund. The tool is only as good as the person using it. You know, even the safest ship in the world will sink if the captain's drunk. You just can't completely outsource your own discipline.
And that brings us all the way back to the main point, the modern expression of what Graham was really all about. The goal isn't to find some magic formula to outsmart the market. The real goal is to find a solid, robust system to stop you from outsmarting yourself.
And that is exactly what this simple indexing strategy gives you. It's built on these 4 incredible pillars. You get consistency, you get transparency, you always know what you own, you get ruthless, absolute cost efficiency, and the big one, you get a built-in framework for behavioral discipline. It literally checks every single box Graham would have wanted for an intelligent investor.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? It means we need to completely reframe what we think winning means. For most of us, the real path to success isn't this frantic, exhausting race to try and beat the market. No, it's a quiet, disciplined effort to simply not lose to yourself. And I think Benjamin Graham would agree. That might just be the most intelligent investment philosophy there is.